episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I'm your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Revolver by Duane Swierczynski. This is from Mulholland Books, and it actually does not come out until July 19th, I believe, is the release date. So this is an early review. And Revolver is a generational story. It takes place in Philadelphia. We've got Stan Walchak, who is a cop in Philadelphia in the 60s, and the book starts with his murder. He and his partner, George Wilde. And then we have 1995, Stan's son, Jim Walchak, is a cop. He's a homicide detective, and he finds out that the guy who he believes killed his father has just been released from prison, where he was on a completely unrelated thing. And so Jim Walchak goes after this guy. Then we have 2015, and Audrey Kornbluth / Walchak, as I have it written in my notes, the adopted daughter of Jim Walchak. She thinks maybe her father got it wrong, and this guy that Jim Walchak went after back in the 90s isn't the guy that killed her grandfather, Stan, back in 1965. Okay, did you follow all of that? It's not as complex as it sounds. Now, the book itself is actually written in sections of 3, for lack of a better way to put it. Each chapter is Stan, then Jim, then Audrey. And as I said, the very first thing we have is the murder of Stan in 1965. I want to say it's May 7th. And a real quick look, yes it is. So the first section is actually May 7th, 1965. We have the death of Stan and George. The next part of the first chapter, again, for lack of a better way to put it, we jump to May 7th, 1995 with Jim Walchak. And then the next part is 2015, May 7th, with Audrey coming back. She's been in Houston. She's studying to be a CSI. She comes back to Philadelphia for, they're putting up plaques. The police department, the city, is putting up plaques to honor Stan and George. And so she comes back to Philadelphia. So the whole thing is structured this way. We get some... So after this very first part, where all 3 take place on May 7th in different decades, in the 60s with Stan, we jump back to 64 and how he met his partner, George Wilde, during some riots in Philadelphia. And you basically have this big kind of lumbering Polish cop gets teamed with a black cop at a time when there's huge racial tension. And so those parts that take place in the 60s, except for that first chapter, is mainly in 64, not 65. But all of Jim Walchak is in 95. All of Audrey Walchak is in 2005. Again, not nearly as confusing as I may be making it sound. It's very well written. It's a layered story, but it's very easy to read. It's easy to follow. And there is quite a bit going on. So back in the 60s with Stan and George, you've got, again, there's a lot of racial tension. I mean, this is a time, I think, at one point in the story, Martin Luther King is in Philadelphia. He doesn't show up in the story. He's just in the background, as it were. And there's a lot of real history going on in this book. And Philadelphia itself is almost a character in the book. We get to see it grow and change. Um, and we see how much it changes throughout the decades and how some things stay the same. And it's the same with the characters. There's actually this really cool map at the front of the book. Let's see, where is it? There it is. You're not going to see it very clearly here, but there's this very cool map. And what you have over here, over here, you've got the legend here, and it's got some general places, and then it'll show you some significant places in 65, in 95, and in 2015. So you can look at those on this pretty cool map if you need that to help you keep track. But it's, as always, Swierczynski's writing is just amazing. I hate to use the term simplistic because it's not. As I said, it's a very layered story, but it's a very easy to follow story. I know I said that already. I just want to make sure that that's clear. It's so well told. And, even if I've never been to Philadelphia, but I love that he digs into the history of it, and shows us aspects of not only what was going on at the time, but what the city itself was like at the time, in these three time periods. And so in the 60s with Stan and George, they're trying to figure some things out. There are drugs coming into the city. There's talk of conspiracies. And of course, there's all the racial issues, the tension, the riots, and everything. They're dealing with this, trying to figure some things out. So that's sort of a mystery there in the 60s. Then you've got in 95 with Jim Walczak as a homicide detective. He's working a homicide. A young woman was raped and murdered. He's working that case at the same time that he finds out the man he thought killed his father has been released from prison. He doesn't feel the guy paid for his crime. He went to jail for something different, so it's not like he paid for the crime of killing Stan Walczak. And then we jump to 2015. Audrey comes back, and her brother, I believe, or is it, maybe it's George Wilde's kid. Somebody says to her anyway. Somebody says something about the crime never having been solved. The murder of Stan Walczak and George Wilde has never been solved. And she's like, what? She's got all sorts of crap going on back in Houston. Her final project is way overdue, so she calls her professor. She says, hey, how about I do this for my final project? I'm going to look into the murder of my grandfather. So that's why she starts investigating. She is curious, but she's also trying to just save her academic career. So you have all these different sorts of mysteries going on, and not just the police mysteries, but the characters have secrets as well. We get hints of something going on with Audrey back in Houston, and that's little things sprinkled throughout. And again, with Jim Walczak in 95, he's got two mysteries going on. Well, one's, to him it's not a mystery. He believes this guy killed his father, but he's trying to figure out this other thing, this rape and murder. But he seems to have some secrets as well. And then we go back to Stan and George, and there's all sorts of contradictory information. Stan's being told he can't trust George, and we don't know. Is it really a case of not being able to trust George? Is it just that these people are racist and essentially believe you just can't trust a black man? So there's all sorts of stuff going on. Again, very layered, but not confusing in any way. And it's got twists and turns and crazy reveals, and it's just, the writing is fantastic. Really, I love the history of the city. I love the characters. A lot of great character development, a lot of family stuff. And I mean, it's about the Walchak family through generations, and we really get to know the characters, which, as always, is incredibly important to me. Um, just so well written, compelling, and it actually there are aspects of it that remind me of old Philip Marlowe novels, the Raymond Chandler. Raymond Chandler wrote the Philip Marlowe detective novels. He was a hard-boiled detective, and it's not nobody here is a private detective. Um, just some of the twists and turns that the story goes through, for some reason, just kind of took me back to reading those old Philip Marlowe novels, and the twists and turns and the connections that are made, and how everything kind of comes together in this sort of wild way. Um, that's just the feeling I got. And they do say there's right here, Charlene Harris on the back has a blurb, and she says Duane Swierczynski writes the new noir, which is very much the case. It feels like that. Again, I think that Chandler wrote noir, and this very much gave me that same feeling that I got when I was reading those. Crazy stuff. Excuse me. Not in the sense, if you've seen my review of the Charlie Hardy trilogy, those books are over the top crazy. This very much grounded in reality, very focused on the characters, but the reveals, the twists, are kind of mind blowing. Um, really, just compelling story. So before I repeat myself again and again and again, more so than I already have, I will tell you, shouldn't come as any surprise. These are kind of crappy drawings, but I give Revolver by Duane Swierczynski. I give it 5 out of 5 badges. I know they're not the best. I actually looked up Philadelphia police badges, and they had these anniversary badges. I can't remember how many years it said, but this is my very basic design stolen from those anniversary police badges. I didn't say, they said Philadelphia and police officer or something on there, and obviously there's a lot more detail than what I managed to do, but 5 out of 5 is the important part. Um, Absolutely a fantastic story. Just fascinating, wonderful characters. Um, and I mean wonderfully written characters. Some of them are douchebags. They're not all wonderful people. Um, so, yeah, I can't recommend this enough. And as I said, it comes out July 19th. So if I can find a link for it, I will have that in the description below. I don't know if it's too soon to have any links for it. But hey, if I have a link there, you're going to want to pre-order this. If you're not big on the pre-orders, mark your calendars. July 19th, that's when it comes out. If you're a mystery fan, if you're a noir fan, if you're interested in sort of the history of Philadelphia, and it's not a history book, and it doesn't bog down. It's all the bits of history that you're going to get here are very organic to the story, and it's really all about race. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, because it's not really all about race, but race is a big part of it. Again, because in the 60s you had a white cop and a black cop working together during these riots, the height of one of the heights of racial tension in the country, and we see how things change, how they stay the same. So really, a lot of that fascinating to me. I hope it will be to you. Revolver by Duane Swierczynski from Mulholland Books comes out in July. Pick it up. 5 out of 5. All right, so a link in the description below if I can find one. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. And please, there's a cat coming in the room. I don't know if you can hear the door creak open. Please like, share, and subscribe. So that's all I've got. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.